praises and glory and honor that's due to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Rakakadash, double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone. Peace and blessings and salutations into the hopeful elect. Those in the gospel abroad, love the stand of Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai. It's the Akia Mahalaya coming back with another lesson through the spirit and power of Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai. Those will be edifying. Titled The Great Reset. As we know that COVID once again was set up to bring about certain different provisions and to take away certain freedoms in the world, mainly you people of Native American, Hispanic, and African American descent, which are the Israelites. This whole thing was set up to bring about a new totalitarian type setup, okay, which was set up to take away freedoms and to ultimately push that chip and to do away with this dollar, okay. It says here, COVID-19 lockdowns are in lockstep with the Great Reset, okay. We know about Operation Lockstep, which is about this second wave and how the Great Reset and how money, all these particular provisions are being done away with, okay, which we've stated through the scriptures several years ago that these things were happening. All right, so it says here, who benefits from the lockdown that are destabilizing all facets of our society. It says, look no further than the emerging global oligarchy, which is aka the elites. Okay, the rich, like the scriptures say, the rich sit in high place, and roughly paraphrasing it, and the low is basically servant to the rich, you know. So this is all set up and orchestrated by the elite bankers, the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, the DuPonts, you know, Lees, the Harris bars, all these particular elite government families are the ones that's profiting behind this whole pandemic. Okay, it don't benefit you, Jakes. All right, if anything, this is to enslave you and to snare you and to eradicate you. But it says, look further. It says, look no further than the emerging global oligarchy, which this is basically the New World Order. It says in October 2019, a pandemic stimulation exercise called Event 201, a collaborative effort between Johns Hopkins Center for Health Security, the World Economic Forum, and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, concluded that a hypothetical new coronavirus may end up killing at least 65 million people worldwide within 18 months of an outbreak. So where do you come up with these numbers from? Okay, that's a very steep chance. What are the chances of that even happening if this wasn't already that was put on the books? Okay, because you got to understand that these particular protocols are already written out, like in the Agenda 21s, but it's just a matter of them putting it into play and it coming to fruition. But this is really the left hand of the Most High that's at work bringing about the prophecies of the Lord. All right. So it says here, when COVID-19 coincidentally emerged from the Wuhan 2 months later, because they know it's a bunch of bullshit. But it says here, when the COVID-19 coincidentally emerged from Wuhan 2 months later, scientists were rushing to generate similar alarmist forecasting using a variety of questionable scientific models. It says researchers from the Imperial College London, for instance, approximated death tolls of 500,000 in the UK and 2 million in the US by October this year. It says here, while scientific models are admittedly fallible, one would nonetheless be hard-pressed to justify the endless string of contradictions, discrepancies, and willful amnesia in the global pandemic narrative. It says, was it science of mass media? Was it the science of mass mediated hysteria? Okay, meaning that the media is, pretty much pumping us up. It's a fear. They're pumping in fear. The propaganda. It says there are many troubling questions yet unanswered, but perhaps what we are really dealing with is a case of corona hypnosis or corona psychosis, as the Belarus president Alexander Lukashenko aptly called it. But who benefits from the global lockdowns that are destabilizing all facets of our society? Following the four great undercurrents may provide a clue. All right. So you have something which is called the Great Deflection. All right. Then also you have the Great Wealth Transfer, the Great Philanthropy, and also you have what they call the Great Reset. So all these are set up in steps and bases as to get in the New World Order. It comes in steps. It don't just come at once. It's called gradualism. That you slowly institute particular reforms into law into the public, and then once the public begins to accept it, then they give it the power to police it. Okay, it's pretty much a staged chaos on a political scale, and also the power of persuasion and fear through media. Okay, so it says the great deflection. This author has warned for more than a decade the world is starting at a confluence of risk overload, socio-economic meltdowns, and a second Great Depression. It says for the ruling classes, COVID-19 is fortuitously deflecting public attention away from the disastrous consequences of decades of economic mismanagement and wealth infractionation. Okay, because like we said, this whole thing was set up to bring in a digital currency, to bring in a chip, all right, and to do away with money and to get rid of the middle class. All right, so now you have what they call the rich and the poor. You don't have a middle class. 6 7 months time that was completely wiped out by the pandemic, and that was all put into play through the elite of the elite bankers. They orchestrated this. Okay, and it's happening on part because this is what the Most High wants to happen. But anyway, it says here the consolidation of big tech, big media, have created an Orwellian world where collective hysteria is shifting Loki from boogeyman like Russia to those who disagree with the pandemic narrative. But we have entered a new normal where North Korea affords more ambulatory freedom than Melbourne, Australia, while rioting and mass demonstrations by assorted radicals are given a free pass, even encouraged by leaders in the West. Facebook posts questioning lockdowns are deemed subversive. But this is a world where Australian blue shirts beat up women, manhandle a pregnant woman in our home, and perform a wolfpack policing on an elderly lady in the park. Yet, the Premier of the Australian state of Victoria remains unfazed by the unflattering moniker of Kim Jong-un. But the corona totalitarianism is unsurprisingly most pronounced in the Anglosphere of its discrepancies. But after all, these nations are starting at a socio-economic bankruptcies of unprecedented proportions vis-a-vis their counterparts. But even their own governments are being systematically undermined from within. But the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, created in the aftermath of 9/11 to combat terrorism, is now providing $10 million in grants to organizations which supposedly combat far-right extremism and white supremacy. But this will further radicalize leftist malcontents who are raising down U.S. cities and its economies in the same name of social justice. But there is, however, a curious rationale behind its inane policy, as the following section illustrates. Okay, so this is controlled chaos. Okay, like the scriptures tell you. Matter of fact, let's get the precept real quick. All right, because Satan is divided against Satan. It says, "How can this kingdom stand?" So this is basically you seeing a breakdown of these governments. You seeing a breakdown of these governments and these local regimes. Okay, which is gonna lead into particular wars from the inside. You know who's gonna feel the power vac, so to speak. All right, so let me get that real quick. This is the book of Mark. No, not Mark, but Matthew's 12, and this is all part of the plan. All right, Esau Edom. He's been speaking on this thing for years. All right, but nonetheless, nobody was able to really decipher it because they speak in code. They swear in secrecy. But anyway, this is the book of Matthew 12 and 25. It says, "And Yahweh Shai knew their thoughts, and said unto them, Every kingdom divided against itself is brought to desolation, and every city or house divided against itself shall not stand. And if Satan cast out Satan, he is divided against himself. How should his kingdom stand?" All right? Because like I said, you got the left wings, and then you got the right wing extremists, then you got the Democrats, the Republicans, you got the what they call the Patriots. You got all these different forms of Edomites that's fighting for some particular cause, but at the end of the day, it's going to generate the same narrative, which is nuclear destruction. Okay, because at the end of the day, Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai is not dealing with none of this, but it's necessary for prophecy's sake. All right, so get another precept here, Psalms the 64th chapter. It says here, "They encourage themselves in an evil matter in a commune of laying snares privately, and they say, Who shall see them?" Okay, because for the longest, this thing went under the radar. All right, even though you had whistleblowers out there that was exposing this tyranny, nonetheless, you was able to write people off as being crazy because they have something which is called plausible deniability, which they can deny the truth in plain sight and not get penalized for it. But they'll hit you with high treason to show you the hypocrisy of this damn devil. All right, it says here, "And they search out iniquities, and they accomplish a diligent search, and both the inward thought of every one of them and the heart is deep." Okay, so that's what this is all about, the great reset. All right, the new world, This is what it's about, as we known as the NWO. But certain things you can't say because Esau, he red listed, blacklisted. But anyway, it goes here, the great deflection. Matter of fact, I read that, Salakia. But it says the great wealth transfer, and this is where it gets interesting because, like I said, it was a transferring of wealth from the rich to from the poor to the rich. All right, because believe it or not, the poor make the rich rich. Don't know how because the poor is poor, but if you pay attention, the poor is the ones that consumes and spends the most product. The poor was keeping this well around because they pay the most taxes, they shop the most, and it's lining the pockets of these elite bankers, your Rothschilds, etc., the Edomites. But it says the great wealth transfer because, like I stated earlier, it was a total shift in paradigm between the rich and poor. Now you have rich and poor. You don't have a middle class. Okay, if you was once considered middle class, now you're a lower class or lower middle class, which basically is equivalent to poor. All right, and it says here, while the circus continues, the bread is thinning out, except for the top 0.001%. But instead of bankruptcy, as recent trends indicated, it says Silicon Valley and the afflicted monopolies are nothing up record profits along with record social media censorships. Yep, just went through that. But U.S. billionaires ranked in 434 billion in the first 2 months of the lockdown alone. So while people were getting broken off and getting raped, and they were losing their jobs and losing their accounts, etc., losing their vehicles, their homes, these elites were getting richer off this. And this is why they told all these top moguls like Walt Disney, the CEOs of these different presidential banks, a lot of them got offshore banking. So a lot of them, they left. They said, look, put your money in a trust, offshore banking, whatever you need to do, get your money from out there and go. Because a lot of these CEOs, man, they was packing up last year because they was told at an event that was going to happen, which was going to break down their economic systems. That's how you know that they're going to ride this thing till the wheels fall off. And this is how you know this is going to be part of the thing that's going to be a big change in a paradigm shift, so to speak. This is going to be the thing that's going to pretty much bring or bridge the gap between the old world and the new world, which is going to lead to that chip. And hey, mark our words when we say that. All right. So anyway, it says here, the more lockdowns, the more wealth occurred in the techno elite. As tens of millions of individuals and small businesses faces bankruptcy by Christmas, the remote work revolutionizes, gifting multi-billion-dollar jackpots to the likes of Jeff Bezos. Right, this man making $90 billion annually, no taxes. How's that possible? But yet, if I'm under paying taxes $300, I get this healthy bill and I'm getting penalized for it. But yet, this man is able to walk away with $90 billion tax free. What's wrong with that picture, man? But it says, let's read it again. It says, as tens of millions of individuals and small businesses face bankruptcy by Christmas, small business owners were the middle class. It says, the remote work revolution is gifting multi-billion-dollar jackpots to the likes of Jeff Bezos, which is over Amazon, and Mark Zuckerberg, which is over Facebook, Azure, which is over Microsoft, which was formerly Bill Gates, and AWS, Amazon, cloud ecosystems, among others, have expanded by 50% since the beginning of the pandemic. Okay, you notice these are the main moguls that's going to be around during the time of the NWO, of the New World. When they institute everything, these global corporations, like a lot of these small time businesses, these mom and pop shops, a lot of these places are going to go out of business, man. All right, but you got places like Amazon, Walmart, all right, what else? Microsoft. These big multi-trillion-dollar moguls will be around. Places like McDonald's, stuff like that. You could forget about your Kmart, your Target. Well, Target, they may be all right, but J.C. Penney's, the big box stores, Kmart, Payless, that's out of there. GameStop, all these particular small businesses, they out of there. They got wiped out during the time of this pandemic. And even then, I'm doing lessons reading about the what they call the retail apocalypse back in 2016, and they told you every year that more of these stores will begin to be wiped out because major tycoon moguls like Amazon and Walmart and Amazon to Go is going to start taking over these corporations and selling their product at a cheaper profit but making more money in the long run. It's basically the legal hustling, But it says, in the face of such runaway wealth fractionation, It says panoptic contracts tracing tools from big tech are increasingly employed to pacify restive populations. Right. You see? But it says, and of course, to prevent a second, third, or ninth wave of COVID-19 for our collective good. But in the meantime, big pharma, big banks, big tech, and other monopolies are getting lavish central bank bailouts or stimulus packages to gobble up struggling smaller enterprises. But COVID-19 is a gift that never stops giving to a select few. But how will the techno oligarchy maintain a degree of social credibility and control in an impoverished and tumultuous world? That's right. Well, it's easy. Control. All right, because everything is going to be systematically controlled and rationed out, and they're going to track and trace everything. All right, so let's get another precept or two here. All right, so this is Proverbs 22, and I'm going to start at verse 7. It says, the rich rule over the poor. Right, because these are multi-billion trillionaires. I won't even say billionaires, man. They don't even deal with billionaires. Rothschilds, they don't even talk to billionaires. They're young, they're little people. You know, like Bill Gates, man, he's a welfare case compared to the Rockefellers, man. They can buy that guy out 100 times and still got dough left over. All right. It says the rich ruleth over the poor, and the borrower is servant to the lender. That's right. The borrower is servant to the lender. That's why when you take out these loans, they had something what is called subprime lending, which they lend to you at a fraction of what the product really costs, but they lend to you extraneous interest rates, so to speak. You know, like vehicles, prime example, where they give you 28% interest on a vehicle that's 20 years old, you know, and expect for you to quadruple the payments. And if you don't pay it, then it comes, it's basically a loan shark. Same thing with these houses, man. You know, they lock you in a 30-year loan. They may say, well, we give you 30% on your mortgage. That's a lot of money over 15 years, man. You've been to pay for the house 20 times. That's why it says the rich rule over the poor, and the borrower is servant to the lender. All right. And he that sow iniquity should reap vanity. That's E. And the rod of his anger shall fail. That's right, because this new world order, it is not gonna prevail. Okay. Like what you're seeing now, it's gonna get worse, but ultimately it's gonna get worse for E too. You know. And it says here, for he that is bountiful, I should be blessed. But for he giveth of his bread to the poor. And Esau, he doesn't do that. All right, because Esau takes from the poor. All right. Verses 16, it says, and he that oppresseth the poor to increase his riches, and he that giveth to the rich shall surely come to want. All right, because hey, we're paying taxes. Like I said, if you owe taxes, let's say if you owe $200 on your taxes, man, they gonna come after you. Versus Jeff Bezos, he's able to walk around here with 90 billion in his pocket, even though he's a little guy on a totem pole, but nonetheless, that man, he can buy us out 100 times. You know, I don't know what it's like to even touch 90 billion. I never seen 90 billion. Now, I'll never see it in his lifetime, you know. But in the next life, of course, you know, we're going to be good. But in this lifetime, yeah, right. You jakes be surprised if you even reach your first meal. Most jakes haven't even seen 100,000 in their life, you know, unless you was doing some wickedness. But anyway, the great philanthropy, and this is where it gets good too, because this is when the narcissistic part comes in, and because you got these elites like what's this guy named David Rothschild, Bill Gates. They try to act like philanthropists, which they're supposed to be humanitarians that go around and spread this wealth or this public speaking or the public knowledge to help people out in their endeavors, when in fact they're killing people. But it says oligarch philanthropy will be a dominant feature of this volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity decade, right? Because the start of the decade sets the trend for the decades. Like 2000, you know, when that started off the War of Terror. What, 2002, 2003, from World Trade Centers kicked off the War of Terror. And throughout the whole decade of 2000 to 2010, it was nothing but fear of propaganda war. All right. Same thing with 2020. All right. During the time of this pandemic, this is going to be the paradigm and the stage that the next decade, which I don't see as being here another 10 years, but this year alone has set the stage for what to expect. Okay. That's how we know that it's not going to get better. And it says here, according to the recent Guardian report, it says philanthropic foundations have multiplied exponentially in the past 2 decades, controlling a war chest worth more than 1.5 trillion. Wow. It says that is sufficient to bankroll a horde of experts, NGO, industries, lobbies, media, and fact checkers worldwide. But large sums can also be distributed rapidly to undermine governments. But the laws governing scientific empiricism are no longer static to immutable, but they must dance in tandem with the funding. For those who scream fake news are usually its foremost peddlers. Yet, this is another new normal which had predated COVID-19 by years. But the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, BMGF, all right, is a prime example on how the oligarchic philanthropy works. It says since 2000, it has donated more than 45 billion to charitable causes, and you put that in quotation marks because that's a big question mark right there. Like they're like, yeah, right. These people are really set up to depopulate, and a chunk of this is designed to control a global media narrative. So a lot of money that they propagated and gave to these different corporations, they used it to control the media. All right, when you pump 50-60 million dollars into CNBC, you can pretty much get them to say what they want to say across different networks across the country. So when you're hearing pandemic, COVID, chip, it's going to be drawn into your mind. Okay, this is why the scriptures say that they search a diligent search, and the hearts of every one of them is deep. Okay, but it says here it's designed to control the global media narrative. But as for BMGF's alleged success in eradicating polio, officials now fear that a dangerous new strain could soon jump continents. After spending $16 billion over 30 years to eradicate polio, international health bodies, which work closely with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, have accidentally, quote unquote, reintroduced the disease to Afghanistan, Iraq, and Pakistan. Notice poor countries, rich in resources though. Why is that? Okay, that affect us get another precept, man. Because this man, he's really out his goddamn mind. Okay, this devil is really, he's really on one. All right, and this is E, man. You know, this is what he does, and this proves that hey, the so-called white man are the biblical Edomites, and sooner or later we ain't gonna be able to say that either. What do you mean? You the Edomites? You're gonna have to flag that too, you know. But anyway, this is the book of Micah 2:1. It says, woe to them that advise iniquity and work evil upon their beds, and when the morning is light, they practice it because it is in the power of their hand. Right, they got the power to do so because they're ultimately the rulers of this dark age. All right, they are the Luciferians on high, so therefore they have the power to enact these formidable laws and injustices on the people. And it says, and they covet fields and they take them by violence. How they take them by violence? Through war. It says, in houses and take them away, so that they oppress a man in his house, even a man in his heritage. That's heavy. You oppress a man in his heritage. You oppress men. You locking men up. You're finding them for basically saying we're the Hebrew Israelites. All right. You paint a bad picture of the real Israelites, and you're protecting these so-called Jews of a false heritage, man, you know, because they swore up and down. They don't know nothing anyway. Most of them Orthodox guys, man, they grew up in that. They were taught that, but they don't know no history. Because if you go to their grandparents, their grandparents and great grandparents know that they were converts, you know. But you try to speak to one of these boneheads, you know, they turn the other way because they know they can't defend what they talk about. They can't defend that bullshit they speak, you know. But it says poverty, hunger, and desperation will spawn a tangible degree of public gratitude despite elites' philanthropy's entrenched bias towards elite institutions and causes. By the Guardian's own admission, British millionaires gave over £1.4 billion to the arts and just £220 million to alleviating poverty in the 10-year period to 2017. But contrast this with the annual $10 billion earmarked by the philanthropic pool for ideological persuasion in the U.S. alone. It says the rabbis worth their weight only for the potential havoc they can wreak, right? Because, like I said, it's going to become controlled chaos. People are going to resort to rioting in the streets. But it says, but there's enough money floating around to reduce our cities into beldams of anarchy, right? The purge, as seen in the United States today. It says the crumbs left over can be delegated to threadbare charities, but one only needs to reflect on soup kitchens in the post-1929 Weimar Republic, when people were literally taking barrels of money and paper and burning it because the money was so devalued to the point that inflation skyrocketed to the point a barrel of money couldn't buy you a loaf of bread. And hey, we're going to see that here in America real soon. And it says here, the most popular ones were organized by the Nazi Party and funded by wealthy patrons. But the march towards the new order has a familiar historical meaning, right? Because they've tried this concept several times during the time of Nimrod, through the time of Antiochus, and again during the time of Esau. which Antiochus was an Edomite, by the way. But it says, but the new brown shirts are those who terrorize citizens for not wearing masks, for not being locked down in their pens, and for simply supporting the political candidate of choice. It says, even children are not spared. Okay? And this is a meme right here. It says here, please question what you're being told for the sake of my children and yours. Peace, love, unity in our family. Because these people are going to eventually, they're going to rise up. These people are going to rise up, and before you know it, it's going to be war out here. All right. And this is what they want. They want control, chaos, so they can be justified on eliminating billions of people. Point blank, period. Just in layman's terms, that's what they're doing. They're hiding behind all this bullshit they're talking about. They're speaking in circles just to tell you, look, we're going to kill you and lock your ass up and make you a slave. That's it. And this is the good part, the great reset. It says, the great pruning would inevitably occur in the mega billionaire club, as whatever remains of the global corona economy is systematically cannibalized. It says the club will get smaller but wealthier, the 1%, and will attempt to sway our collective destiny. Basically control. It says control over education, healthcare, means of communications, and basic social provisions is being increasingly conceded by governments to the global elites. But governments colluding in the new normal will sooner or later face the ear of distressed masses, right? Because people are going to come against them. Politicians and assorted social justice warriors will be scapegoated once they have outlived their usefulness, all right? Because they're going to try to get through the back door, but a lot of you are going to get caught up too. But it says this cauldron and the century-old technocratic dream of replacing politicians, electoral processes, and businesses with societies run by scientists and technical experts may emerge thanks to advances in pentatonic technologies. But it will be an age for the rational science of production, right? Because they always say science, science, science. They keep drumming science in your mind. You start to trust them. And it's scientific collectivism. But the latter is eerily redolent of the Soviet Sharashka's prison lab system, because history repeats itself. But the production of supply of goods will be coordinated by a central directorate led not by elected representatives whose roles, where they exist, will be nominal anyway, but by technocrat, it says factotums. But perhaps this is what the World Economic Forum referred to as the Great Reset. But in reality, through this idea smacks of the global ghost plan minus the Dr. Sargis's for the innumerable many. But some emerging economies like Malaysia and India casually refer to technocracy or tenocracy, Salakia is tenocracy, as an infusion of greater technical expertise into the extent bureaucracy. But this is a misinterpretation of tenocracy's long-standing means or goals. But one intractable problem remains. Will the emerging global oligarchy tolerate the existence of various deep states worldwide? Question. Well, initially, both groupings may cooperate their mutual benefit, but a respective reason the other to contradictory to be reconciled. But one thrives on an open society run by obedient hirelings who will administer a global ministry of truth, while others depend on a secrecy and a degree of national sovereignty to justify existence. But surveillance technologies are ushered in by the ongoing, it says, corona psychosis may end up being a deciding factor. So it's all about control, brothers, man. He wants that control, and this is him setting up his kingdom of heaven on the left-hand side, aka the kingdom of hell. All right, and it isn't going to be to no avail. The Lord is going to shut that shit down. All right, so this is the book of James 5:1. It says, go to now, ye rich men, weep and howl, for your misery should come upon you, okay? So you Edomites out there, man, you think that you're going to get your new world order off. Look, man, hey, this is good as it get for you. And it says, and your riches are corrupted, and your garments are moth-eating, and your gold and silver is cankered, and the rust of them should be a witness against you, and should eat your flesh as of a fire. For you have reaped treasure together for the last days, okay? And this is the last days. You know, you're sewing up, you're liquidating all the business, you're extracting the wealth to yourself, and this is why you set up a credit-based system to get people to believe in a fiat currency based on credit, which doesn't exist, by the way. So you can take all the silver and gold for yourselves and hoard it. You out your goddamn mind, man. That's why I said you have heaped treasure together for the last days. But behold, the hire of the laborers who have reaped down your fields, which is of you kept back by fraud. Okay, this is a fraudulent system. All right, and the cries of them which have reaped are entered to the ears of the Lord of Sabaoth, Lord of the armies. It says, you have lived in pleasure on the earth, been one time undisciplined. It says, and have nourished your hearts as in a day of slaughter. And ye have condemned and killed the just, and he doth not resist you, right? Because Jacob is like a sheep to the slaughter. And Jake can't resist you because, hey, where they gonna go to get food and water and bread? Where they gonna go to get the jobs? You know. But it says, "Be patient, therefore, brethren, until the coming of the Lord Yahushua. But behold, the husbandman waited for the precious fruits of the earth, and have long patience for it until he received it early with latter rain. So be ye also patient. Establish your hearts, for the coming of the Lord draweth nigh." All right. So, brothers, be ready, man. This thing is getting ready to pop any day now, and it's popping right now. You just got to be in the spirit to see it. You got to want to see it. Unlike some guys that try to run from this thing. But anyway, this is the book of Job 5, and I'm going to start at verses 12. It says, "He disappointed the devices of the crafty, and so that their hands cannot perform their enterprise." That's this new world order. This is what we're talking about, the great reset. And it says that he taketh the wise in their own craftiness. All right, because this was a crafty devised plan, no other by Esau Edom through the Most High on the left-hand side. Esau conjured this up for years. He's been talking about this, and now he's able to finally put it into play. "And the counsel of the forward is carried headlong, but they meet with darkness in the daytime and grope at noonday as the light." Okay, "But he saveth the poor from the sword and from their mouth and from the hand of the mighty, so that the poor have hope, and the iniquity starve at our mouth." Okay, because hey, the Most High is gonna destroy this goddamn place, man, in your goddamn your new world order. You can forget about it, all this. Well, we're gonna eliminate roughly 6.5 billion people to maintain humanity at a complete populace. That way you can police the people and you can monitor them directly. Because my thing is, even if he chipped the whole world, he's gonna keep an eye on all these people, when especially he's the real minority. Esau likes to talk about how we're the minority. No, you're the minority, man. So anyway, yep, this is the book of Job 18, and I'm gonna start at verses 14. It says, "His confidence should be rooted out of his tabernacle, and it should bring him to the king of terrors." Right, because he's going to end up fighting that third world war and getting eviscerated by Yahweh Bashem, Yahweh Shai. "And it should dwell in his tabernacle because of none of his. And brimstone should be scattered upon his habitation." And his habitation is basically America and the westernized economies, from Britain to, France to Luxembourg, all these particular places. But anyway, my last precept here, this is the book of Job 20, and I'm going to start at verses, let's start at verses 20. It says, "Surely he should not feel quietness in his belly, and he should not save of that which he desired, and there should none of his meat be left. Therefore should no man look for his goods. And in the fullness of his sufficiency he should be a straits," that's his new world order, "and every hand of the wicked should be about him. And when he is about to fill his belly, the Most High should cast the fury of his wrath upon him, and should rain it upon him while he is eating." Okay, so he's in the process of getting that nice steak out the oven. He's getting ready to sit down. You know how you get the steak knife and the fork? You put the napkin on it. You getting ready to dig in some plushes, some tender steak that's well done and it's juicy. That's what Esau think he's getting ready to do. But the Most High got another thing for him, man. He's only gonna be able to go so far with this new world order. Like it tells you, matter of fact, one more precept, Salaki. I know I keep saying that, but hey, the spirit is moving. This is the book of Job 14, and I'm going to start at verses 5. It says, "Seeing his days are determined, the number of his months are with thee, and thou hast appointed his bonds that he cannot pass." Okay, so hey, his new world order is only set up to go but so far before the Most High does away with it. But anyway, brothers, I'm going to close it down here, giving out praises and glory and honor that's due to Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai, Bashem Rakakwadash. Double honors to the elders, the apostles of Great Millstone, and blessings and salutations unto the hopeful elect. And with that, shalom and the Baba Ball. Lord's will you will edify. Until the next lesson, shalom.